To overcome, you must educate. Educate not only yourself, but educate anyone seeking to learn. We are all dead America. We can all learn something. To learn, we must challenge what we already understand. The way we do that is through conversation. Sometimes we have conversations with others. However, some of the best conversations happen with ourselves. Reach out and challenge yourself. Let's dive in and learn something new right now. Today we are speaking with Dr. George Maurer. George, could you please introduce yourself and let people know just a little bit about you, please?
Yeah, hi, my name is Dr. George Maurer. I'm the author of a new book called Critical Race Theory in Your School, How to Fight Back. And I've also created a Facebook page with the exact same title. I don't like cute titles, so my Facebook page is titled Critical Race Theory in Your School, How to Fight Back by Dr. George Maurer. And I noticed around the time that I went back to school to get my doctoral degree that critical race theory was an interesting subject. It was popping at the time around 2020. And I knew that I needed to write a dissertation about something that would keep my interest. And this was definitely a subject that I knew would keep my interest. And so I wrote my dissertation about CRT. And then I converted my CRT from academic ease into normal English so regular people could read it. And the book published in May, and here we are.
It is a fascinating book, how you've put this together. And I like the footnotes of this book because it allows you to go and watch videos and see the material that he's quoting through the book. So it's fascinating once you dive into it and understand what is being said. Now, we've all probably heard of CRT, critical race theory, but it's kind of not what it appears to be. And until this came across the desk, I really didn't have no reason to go in and dive and check this out. But this is important to each and every one of us because it is really dividing us, is the ultimate thing that I see here. Could you please start with explaining what critical race theory is for people that don't have a clue? Because most probably don't.
Sure. Well, first of all, one thing that we're told a lot is that critical race theory and ethnic studies are exactly the same thing, and they're not. Ethnic studies is the positive, healthy learning of one's culture, which leads to self awareness and self confidence. A very good thing. And according to Stanford University research, shows that it could be an invaluable tool for at-risk students, particularly students of color. Critical race theory, on the other hand, is a relentless focus on only our worst moments in history without giving benefit to all of the progress that we've made over the last 65, 75 years. And at its heart, critical race theory is a Marxist philosophy that uses oppressor versus oppressed ideology, meaning any class that is CRT is basically white kids against black kids, white kids against Hispanic kids, white kids against indigenous kids. And what they do is they create racial tension between these children. There was one parent in Texas, I believe, who took a photograph of a lesson plan on the board from a kindergarten class. In this kindergarten class, they were told to explore freedom was the title of the lesson, and how they were supposed to explore freedom was to discuss the following sentences: whites have more than blacks, whites oppress blacks, whites harass people of color. And when you're in a war, you must fight. So these are 5 and 6 year old children. They're, I mean, nowhere near emotionally ready to have this discussion. I know most adults aren't ready to have this discussion, but that's what critical race theory is. It creates this negative racial tension, and then they claim they're going to reach some sort of positive outcome by all of this. And none of it makes sense. If you take 4 seconds to think about it, none of it makes sense.
Well, you can really break it down pretty simple if you really do your study. It doesn't take long when you dive into it on the internet and you come across, well, some of the videos that goes into these school board meetings. It's fascinating because you can see it right there in the front seat of these videos. And I encourage the listeners here today, please get the book and check out what we're talking about. It's fascinating because there's a deception happening. And I want to know more about how it crept in. I come across about 1970s, it started really creeping in to do this fundamental change in America per se. How how and when did this start creeping in?
Sure. Well, in critical race theory, as it is about the 70s. However, again, these are Marxists at their core. They're Marxists. And, Marxism, for those who don't know, was a reimagining of human society back in the 1800s. And the way they reimagined society was supposedly more equitable, more fair, and they used class relations in order to divide people. And so, what critical race theory is, it's a continuation of that, again, oppressed versus oppressor. White people are the oppressors, everybody else is the oppressed. And it's all based on racism. But it started back in the 1800s. And the way they teach it is the same way they brainwashed people back in the Soviet Union days, the Russian Revolution. It's the same way they brainwashed Red China, brainwashed people, Nazi Germany. I mean, you name it. It's all the same thing. And what they do is they tell you that what you believe is wrong. You are bad. Your family is bad. America is bad. America is the center of all racism in the world. And what happens is these little kids are impressionable, and soon they begin hating their country. They start hating themselves. They start hating their families. And then what the Marxists do at that point is they come in and begin installing, I guess, if you want to say it, but they begin teaching these children their version of social justice. And I mean, you don't have to look far. I mean, look at the shooting, attempted assassination of President Trump over the weekend. And you got a bunch of people on Facebook who were saying, "Oh, too bad he missed, too bad he missed, too bad he missed." Those are those are woke people. They are victims of critical race theory.
Yeah, it's really evident that we're dealing with this in America. And it's kind of really sad because a lot of men and women put a lot of work into race relations to better it. And here we are dealing with this aggressive type of change again. So it's important for us to recognize the change that it's happening, and it's creeping in right there where it matters in the young children. That's where Hitler Youth, for example, if we allow this, there's going to be deep divides.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, unfortunately, race is a very sensitive subject. And that's why they selected race, because you accuse a white person of being a racist, which is a disgusting thing to do to a human being, by the way. But if you accuse a white person of being racist, generally they'll just back down because I mean they're afraid of that. And I mean they have a life, they've got friends, they would like to continue things the way they are. But if you label somebody a racist and you're good at it, I mean they people lose jobs, promotions, friends, I mean you name it. And the critical race theorists, they know that, and so that's why they're doing what they do, and that's why they use race. It's a particularly effective weapon to divide people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big point because you're seeing movements like the Black Lives Matter and all of these creeping in. That's all division in our world. Here, America has offered to everyone an opportunity. And when we allow negative connotations to come in and change our mindset, it really reflects on all of us. So it's our duty to stand up and have conversations like this today to change what is being presented. You can't fear this stuff. You've got to fight this stuff. And I'm not talking AR 15s and weapons and things like that. We need good conversation. Exactly. And that's what we're lacking really in our world. And we both understand there's aggressions and there's things that make us feel ooh just sick and tired of all of it. But yet if we let those emotions guide us, we're not getting anywhere. So it takes strong men and women that can actually pull people together to these rational conversations. Isn't that part of fixing what's going on in America today?
Yeah, it's definitely what's part of what's going on today. And we have, again, ethnic studies and critical race theory, two very different things. And one of the ways we can fix this is do things like the state of Florida. They just banned CRT. And when they say they ban CRT, anything that says one race is superior or inferior to another, one race that is inherently responsible for oppressing other races, one race that is inherently responsible for past events. That is critical race theory. And so Florida came out with a brand new social studies program in 2023 where all of those things have been removed and they have created what's called a fact based, historically accurate social studies program. And it's an interesting program. And one of the things that critical race theorists say as well, you just don't want to tell history, real history. You just want to cover up the racism in history. And well, I went through that social studies curriculum myself, and they have things where Europeans arrive in Africa and begin engaging in the slavery process. They look at things like the conditions that slaves were going through while being transported across the country. They look at things like revolt and the Underground Railroad and all of those things when they were here. But more importantly, they also cover the good things. They talk about heroes and patriots from African Americans, from our early days. They talk about people who were patriots during the Revolutionary War who also happened to be African American. They talk about the social influences of African Americans in this country. And anybody with eyes can see that the influence of African Americans on American society has been vast. I mean, you name it. And so they I mean, yeah, they do look at the difficult things, but they do it in an age appropriate manner. Okay, that's part of it. But the other thing they do is they talk to these young African American children, and it's not just African; it's all of the various groups. But they talk to these African American children and create a sense of pride in who they are, not a sense of anger. Um, and that's part of critical race theory is they're told American society is designed to keep them down and designed to make them fail. And they have no shot in this country, none, which of course is a big fat lie. But the worst part about it is you picture an at risk student in a city like Detroit or St. Louis or Chicago who may live in a very difficult neighborhood, and they may see education as a way out. Okay. Unfortunately, you have these critical race theorists who are telling this kid, you got no shot, man. You got no shot. This whole country is designed to keep you down. Don't even try. So, first of all, you've stolen hope from this child at risk, this student at risk. So, what are they going to do? You think they're going to come back to school every day? You think they're going to work hard to get their grades up to get into a good college or a good trade school or, develop a skill, a craft to get out of the neighborhood? No, they're going to give up. And what happens when they give up? That's where you see the school to prison pipeline that a lot of leftists like to talk about. They complain about it, but it seems like they're working hard to keep that pipeline open and flowing you know and maybe they're going to be involved with gangs, maybe they get a young girl pregnant when they're teenagers, they don't graduate from high school. I mean, all of the bad things happen when you allow critical race theory to influence the mind of a child. All of the good things happen when you expose them to good, healthy, positive ethnic studies where they take pride in themselves and they learn who they are and they use it as a stepping board to success.
That was well laid out. I like that a lot. I would like you to talk to us about the patriarchic system being broken down because I listened to this on another podcast and I found it to be so needed. You need to hear this. So, could you please explain the breakdown, patriarch, matriarch, why it's being skewed right now?
Yeah, well, Marxists, they have certain goals which they've had for a long time, the downfall of Western society, the downfall of capitalism, but also the downfall of the nuclear family. And one of their goals is to go back to a matriarchal society, one that we apparently lived in while we were still hunter gatherers, and where the mothers they have sex with various men in the group, and so the genealogical lines of the children cannot be tracked through the father, so they're traced only through the mothers. And so this is their ultimate goal is to go back to this matriarchal society because they see men, a patriarchal society, as oppressive toward women. They never consider that a woman gets a great deal of satisfaction, a great deal of happiness from being a mother and a wife. What they see, they see, being a mother and a mom as oppressive. It's, Black Lives Matter. Those are trained Marxists. The three ladies who started that, Marxists. And I guarantee you, I already know that BLM they are targeting the nuclear family, although that phrase has been removed from their website because they were getting pushback from it. But anything in charge by men is seen as oppressive and bad and must be replaced. So now, everyone who studies any kind of sociology, the traditional two-parent home, nothing. There is no successful model for raising a child like two committed, married, biological parents. And when you start messing with that a little bit, remove one, bring in a grandparent, remove one, bring in a step parent. And I've been a step parent. I am a step parent. I'm not saying they don't have value, but the thing is, a two parent biological home is the single most successful for raising a child. And these Marxists have targeted that for a number of reasons. We've already discussed a little bit. Part of it, though, is also when a child is raised by two loving parents, that's where their loyalty lies. And see, Marxists cannot have that. They need the loyalties of the child to lie with the state. So part of what they're doing when they break up the family is they're breaking up the child's allegiance to the parents. And again, it's take down capitalism, take down America, take down Western civilization, and install a Marxist model for the entire world. And we already know what the result will be and has been many, many times. Venezuela is probably the most recent and most obvious. They were doing really well, had one of the best economies in the Americas with oil and gas. And then someone convinced them that the oil companies were taking advantage of them and they needed a Marxist government to go in there and to create a more equitable society. So they voted in some Marxists, and 2 years later, they're shooting the dog because there's no food in the supermarkets anymore, you know?
Yep. Eating rotten meat.
Yes,
It's amazing. That's a good example of how rapidly quick it can
real
change.
fast, real
You know,
fast.
and a big thing here that people need to remember: we're a constitutional republic, and a republic is rule of law, and we've lost that
Right.
mindset with this takeover and emphasis of this CRT, and it just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. Our founding fathers warned us the only way we can keep this together is if we take charge and make sure we preserve these protections, these rights for future generations. And it will only crumble from within. And that's how wonderful, this little book is, the Constitution. It it's there because so many were oppressed, and these men gave us something to look forward to. It's not perfect, but that's why it's a living document, a breathing document, and each generation must take it upon themselves to fix, alter, or abolish what is bad and instill good in the system to keep it continually growing for all of us. And yes, we've been through, the Indians, the blacks, and Mexicans. There's always divisions thrown at us, but we're strongest when we're one. And
Definitely.
I think it starts with education. And we've lost civics being taught in the schools. I think this is another big one. If you don't know how government works, how can you stand up to government?
Sure. And
What's your thought on
personally,
that, George?
well, it's personally, I agree with you that we are better together, and we happen to live in one of the most racially tolerant societies in the world. But you would never know that by watching television. I mean, you watch the news, and it's one America's racist story after another. America's so racist. America's so racist. America's so racist. And the thing is, people start to believe it. But those civics classes that you were talking about, it's my personal belief they stopped teaching them to usher in things like CRT. Because the more people understand what America is, the more they love it, the more patriotic they are, and the less likely they are to be successful. And you're right. I mean, you can't take down America from the outside. It needs to come from within. And that's exactly what these people are doing. You know, there was something called the Venona Files. Have you ever heard of this before? There's a book called the Venona Files. When Okay, well, when the Soviet Union fell in the early '90s, they opened up all of their archives, I mean everything, to American researchers. And one of the things they discovered was something called the Venona Files. And in there, if you remember back to Senator Joseph McCarthy in the '50s, who believed that 300 KGB agents were working in America to take down America, and he was attacked and destroyed, and how dare you say those things? I remember my mother in the '70s saying, "Oh, it's Joseph McCarthy." They said his name somewhere. Oh, he was a terrible, terrible man. Well, the thing is, once American researchers got into these files, they learned it wasn't 300 KGB agents actively working in America. It was 3,000. And they were working, and you can guess where they were working. I mean, I don't need to tell you, but you can guess. But Hollywood, the press, government, education. That's where they were focusing their efforts to tear down people's appreciation of America. I remember when it was a good thing to be a patriot. Now, I mean, you walk around being a patriot and, oh, you must be some kind of racist. Again, it's a disgusting but effective weapon. And they use it very well. They use it very well. Yes.
That is so true. And there's so much to this. I want to kind of shift into some of the things that are good that can help people battle this and help fight it. uh, in your book you talk about the parents' bill of rights, and I think this is very important for people to actually realize that they do have rights, and to empower themselves with these rights is what we need to put into people's minds. So, could you help us with that a little bit, please?
Sure. Well, first of all, what you need to realize is that there are a great many teachers who believe they are more entitled to raise your children than you are. And so it's a phrase called in loco parentis. It's a Latin phrase. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in my book or not, but in loco parentis means that in place of parents. So if you as a parent believe something, whatever it may be, and your child's teacher believes something opposite, your child's teacher feels entitled to install their values above yours. Okay, there's lots of teachers like this out there. There was one school where in my dissertation where they asked, informal survey of the teachers. 85% of the teachers said it was okay to teach a child something that conflicts with their parental values. And so that, just to kind of give you an idea. Um, but as a parent, yes, you have rights and you need to know what they are, and you have the right to complain or to seek changes about your child's education. And so if you notice things that are going on, then you should say something. And one of the pieces of advice that I offered in my book was, if you see some unusual things in your child's homework, or you overheard some strange things during a virtual classroom lesson, one of the first things you should do is go look at your child's online class descriptions. And you're probably not going to see the words critical race theory, because they've already kind of gotten hip to the fact that your average parent is not crazy about critical race theory, does not want their child to be taught it. So they've removed those words. However, the content remains behind. So there are some words, some code words that you can see that you look for in the online description. If you see the words oppression, systemic racism, marginalization, white supremacy, chances are your child is being exposed to critical race theory. And if you try to get your child out of a class with critical race theory, don't expect them to just go, okay, sure, no problem. They're going to fight you. And there was a parent in North Carolina who had to go to the teacher, vice principal, principal, then to the school board. And each time he said, I don't want my child in this class. And each time the school official goes, well, it's mandatory. There's nothing we can do about this. And finally, at the end, he said, okay, well, show me where it's written that my child has to be exposed to this particular class. And when he looked it up, of course, oh, it's all online. It's all online. When he looked it up, it did not exist. That requirement did not exist. And so do not let these teachers try to what do they call that? Gaslighting you. Don't let them gaslight you. Don't let them make you think you don't know what you're talking about. Because as the parent, you know exactly what you're talking about. You know what you want your child, how you want them to be raised, what beliefs you want to instill in them. Don't let anyone, especially someone who is quote unquote educated, and as even believe me, no one disrespects a college degree more than I do, even though I've got a doctoral degree. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that teacher was smarter than you. Actually, some of the dumbest people I've ever met are some of the most educated people I've ever met. So don't be intimidated by them. Stand up for your kids. Do what's right.
You're absolutely correct. And I need the listeners to look up Stanley Milgram and the experiment on power, perceived power, and what people will do because they perceive a person has power over them or over a situation. It's exactly the same tactics that the Nazis used in World War II. And that's why they have these psychological and physiological studies so we can learn from past mistakes. We don't want to go back there. And I see so many parallels pushing us towards that ultimate conflict, and we don't need that. Have we not covered anything that you think that we should add to this conversation today?
Well, I think we've covered most of the highlights, that's for sure. But don't expect this to just go away. That's one thing you need to keep in mind. As parents are standing up, realizing what's going on, standing up and fighting back, it's people think, oh, okay, well, the tide has turned, so we're doing pretty good. So, do we really need to pay attention? Yeah, we do. On my Facebook page, Critical Race Theory in Your School, How to Fight Back by Dr. George Maurer. I'm not into cute titles, so I just used my book title and my name for my Facebook page title. But I have created a one stop shop for all things critical race theory. It's a way for people to, you can go out there and what's the latest today on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and CRT. And they're basically the same thing, although DEI is more for the workplace generally, and CRT is more for the school generally, but they're essentially the same thing. And so what they do is they seek to divide people based on race. However, there is something called the defense Department of Defense education activity, and they run a school system on military bases around the world. So whenever a kid's parent gets stationed over in Germany, there's a school on base, an American school on base, where they go to school, of course, and it's run by this DODEA organization. Now, in 2023, they promised Congress, testified to Congress under oath, that they would dismantle their DEI net office, and so they, again, under oath, we're going to just dismantle this DEI group. And what happened was a year later, we learned that they dismantled nothing. They reassigned all of the key individuals into other less descriptive job titles. They reassigned the resources to other areas, but in the end, nothing changed. They're still doing that DEI work within that school system. And they lied to Congress about it, okay? Again, they've been doing this for a long time. They're not just going to go away. And just because we've begun to stand up and fight back now doesn't mean this is going to end anytime soon. So keep your eyes and ears open. And again, one of the ways is you can follow my Facebook page, and I'll post daily little updates. Here's what happened today in CRT, and then I put a little my take on things, and then a little blurb from the story to just kind of explain what's happening. So, but it's again, they've been doing this for 150 years. Don't expect them to just go, oh, okay, I guess we lost. We're going to go home now. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And once DEI and CRT become absolute phrases, that they have to completely avoid, all they're going to do is they're just going to reimagine it and give it a new name and reinstall it if it hasn't. If they were forced to remove it, they'll find a way to get back into the system. Believe me when I tell you.
That's right. And that's why we need our due diligence to stand strong and steady. It's a needed thing today. Dr. George Maurer, this has been a fascinating conversation. I thank you for taking the time today. Could you tell people how to reach out and get a hold of you, please?
Well, one of the things you can do is you can follow me and like me on my Facebook page. You'll get it, you can direct message me from there, but you can also just comment on things. And I do try to engage with everyone who comments on my page. So if you have any questions, please, I highly encourage you to go out there and ask those questions on my Facebook page. I love engaging with folks. I love helping folks who have questions. So I'm more than happy to do that. The other thing you can do is my email address is george@gsmaurer.com, and that's Golf Sierra, then my last name, Maurer, MAURER.com. Again, email me with any questions you may have, and I'll do my very best to answer them. And of course, you can always find my book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us today. It's been fascinating, and we really need this so much in our world. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this podcast enlightening, entertaining, educational in any way, please share, like, subscribe, and join us right back here next week for another great episode of Dead America Podcast. I'm Ed Waters, your host. Enjoy your afternoon, wherever you may be.